The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
Buccaneers ownership rewards Jason Licht and Todd Bowles.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The big news of the day, and that is both Jason Licht and Todd Bowles get multi-year extensions on Thursday, showing the organization's faith and trust that they have in those two guys. Now, Jason Licht is entering his 12th season as the general manager, while Todd Bowles has been the coach for the last 3 years and was entering the final year of his contract. Say what you will about Todd, but all this guy has done is win 3 straight division titles while navigating the transition to the post-Brady era. And his tenure started off late with the unexpected announcement of Bruce stepping down long after all the coaching vacancies had already been filled. And if I remember correctly, we were getting ready to start the combine, or the combine had just ended. It was really, really late in the process. So, he gets off to his start super, super late in that final year that Tom Brady played, then had to deal with all of that nonsense. He had to deal with the off-field problems for Tom Brady. There were plenty of injuries, still won the division. It wasn't a great year, but still got the job done. So although I've been critical of Bowles at times, and many fans have been critical of Bowles, he has done things that no other coach in franchise history has done, and that is winning the division 3 consecutive times. Now, as a GM, Licht has overseen 4 consecutive division titles following their Super Bowl win. So these two have worked extremely well together, and that is being rewarded by ownership. In a statement that was released, owner and co-chairman Joel Glazer said, quote, "Jason and Todd's leadership has been critical to our organization's success. The winning culture they have established has us well positioned for the future. The continuity and stability they provide will play a large role in our ability to compete for additional championships." End quote. Remember that word continuity. I'm going to bring it up about 67 more times here in the next couple of minutes. But for his part, Jason Licht said, quote, "I am very grateful to the Glazer family for the trust and belief they have shown in what we are doing here. I am also very excited to continue working alongside Todd well into the future as we continue our mission of finding and developing talented players and chasing additional championships for our fans." End quote. Finally, Todd Bowles said, quote, "I'm excited to continue working with Jason for years to come as we build on the success we've enjoyed and keep reaching for even bigger and better goals. My family loves Tampa, and we're looking forward to delivering more great moments for our fans in the coming seasons. I also appreciate the confidence that the Glazer family has shown in my abilities to lead this football team. It is a responsibility that I do not take lightly and am honored to have." End quote. Since joining the Bucs in 2019, Todd Bowles' defenses have been among the best in the NFL, starting with the rush defense, which has a league-leading 93.8 yards allowed per game, a league-leading 4 yards per carry allowed, and the most fumble recoveries with 68. They're also top 5 in sacks with 281 and red zone efficiency at 53.8%. And I saw a list the other day putting Bowles in a tier of coaches that were quote unquote on the hot seat. And I can tell you that talk ends right now. When this news broke, I texted the insiders and I said, Jason Licht, Todd Bowles, they're getting multi-year extensions. We can put the hot seat talk to bed when it comes to Todd Bowles, because he's not on the hot seat this year at all. Barring some absolutely insane, like fall on your face failures without any injuries that would explain why the team falls on their face, Bowles isn't going anywhere. It would literally take a failure of epic proportions, the likes of which we have never seen, in order for him to lose his job after this extension. And I don't see that happening. I've said for weeks, maybe months, that this team is among the best in the NFC, that it can compete with any team in the NFL. They should be viewed through the same lens as teams like the Lions, the Eagles, the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs. There isn't a team in this league that the Bucs cannot go toe-to-toe with, and the big reason for that is continuity. That means continuity along the roster, continuity in the front office, continuity among the coaching staff. Yes, they keep losing their offensive coordinators, and that's because Todd has done such an incredible job of choosing ones that are good. He keeps getting it right. So other teams keep taking them away to be head coaches, and that absolutely stinks for the Bucs, but it's another feather in the cap of the job that Todd Bowles is doing. As for Jason Light, I've had Light's back the entire time I've hosted this show. David and I used to get emails and voicemails way back when, all the time, about people who wanted to fire Jason Light. And we always talked about how good of a job he's actually done. It's just that nobody noticed until Tom Brady showed up. And, the whole reason Brady showed up was because it was a win now roster that Jason had built. And he had done it in a way that when Brady said, hey, I need Gronk, I want Leonard Fournette, I want Antonio Brown, Light was able to make it happen. He said, you know what, Tom? All right, I got you. And he went and he got all of them. He trades for Gronk. He signs Fournette. He signs Antonio Brown. As far as I can tell, or as far as I could gather, Light is the 7th longest tenured GM in the league. He has more total snaps played and games started by players that he's drafted in the first 5 rounds of the NFL draft than any other GM in the league. The Bucs had 50 different players start a game for them last year. 40 of them were drafted by Jason Light. His draft class last year tied for the most first-year starters of any class in the NFL last season. His ability to find players that immediately contribute that he takes in those middle rounds is absolutely remarkable. And the same can be said about his ability in undrafted free agency. But take a look at last year. Jalen McMillan, Tyke Smith, Bucky Irving. The year before, it was Yaya Diaby and Servassier Dennis. This year, we have been talking a lot about Jacob Parrish and the expectations for him coming into this season. Greg Allman tweeted that 27 out of the Bucs' 29 draft picks since 2022 are still on the roster, and they have at least one of their picks from every draft dating back to 2017. Levante is the only player on this team that was here before Jason Light was. This was a great move by ownership in the same way that it's hard for a player to be out there on an expiring deal. It's the same way for a coach. While there was very little to no doubt that Jason would be sticking around for a while, we kept seeing this stuff pop up about Todd Bowles potentially being on the hot seat. We talked about him being on the hot seat for 2 years. So this shows that ownership, the organization, they believe in Todd and they believe in his abilities to get this team where we all believe that they can go. And that is competing for a Super Bowl.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right in the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
There has to be a leader on every receiving core, and this year, his name's Rashee Rice.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
So it comes down to, how do you make Mahomes the best that he can be? It can't go back to 2018. There's no time machine here. This is not Back to the Future, but it is a possibility to take it up a level, in my opinion, if you truly dedicate yourself to that. And that seems to be what we're getting the message from Mahomes, from Andy Reid, et cetera, et cetera. But there's got to be somebody on the other end. Travis Kelce, likely his last rodeo. I don't care what he says. He's going to keep that book open. But there's really two candidates here. And I think because we don't have a ruling on Rashee Rice, and there have been other rulings and suspensions handed down today, and we don't have anything with Rashee Rice, I think he's going to be here for the season. And I think he's going to end up being the number one target in yards and in targets for the season in 2025.
I don't think that's outlandish. I think that's probably going to be what ends up happening. He was well on his way last year, and injury, a freak injury at that. I mean, it wasn't even a injury that you would expect a player like him to have. I mean, he gets hit by his own quarterback on a play. So to me, I think that makes a lot of sense that he's going to be that guy. And I think that he was probably going to be that guy even before Hollywood Brown got injured, if I'm being quite honest. Like, I don't think that was going to change, because I think him and Mahomes got on the same page toward the end of his first season, and then definitely in the Super Bowl. And Kelce was already starting to take, I'm not going to say a back burner or a backseat to him, but was starting to be leveled off a bit, at least. I guess I will say it that way, in the Super Bowl prior. So I think you're completely accurate on this. I think that it is going to be Mahomes' favorite target is going to be Rashee Rice, and it kind of fits his skill set and what he wants to do anyway.
Yeah. I do think Travis would probably be the likely number two guy. He's out there coaching TEU, like coaching guys up on route running. We saw a little clip of that. I've seen a couple other little clips from folks that were there. He's still got it. He's still able to share it. I'm just not sure if the performance can be what it was 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe he still has it in him. I think there's a possibility there, but I would consider him the most likely candidate to be number 2 in terms of yardage and targets. Maybe number 1 in touchdowns, though.
That'd be interesting. It's possible. It's the curiosity with Travis Kelce is he doesn't use his skill set necessarily to get open. It's more of working with Patrick and Patrick knowing what Kelce's going to do. So he's not going to be as reliable, he's not going to rely on his speed and his athleticism as much as some other players have, which I think actually helps him when you start talking about his age and the fact that he has slowed down a little bit and he's lost some of his explosiveness.
Yeah. And Father Time catches up with us all at his age. I think that's still remarkably good and profitable to the offense. But now it gets really interesting. Who then, as we look at this landscape now, who becomes number 3 when it's all said and done? When we look back at just say the regular season, we don't have to go to the playoffs, but what do you think?
I think it's got to be Worthy. And I say it's going to be Worthy because you look at what he was able to do his rookie year. I think if you look at his skill set, what he's able to do, taking the top off the defense, I think him and Mahomes started getting on the same page toward the end of the season and in the playoffs. But he also rounded out to become a more rounded wide receiver towards the end of the season. He was running different routes. He was doing different things. And he is going to be able to play all 3 positions at that wide receiver position. So I think it could be Xavier Worthy being that number 3 guy.
Well, I think that's certainly a possibility, but I'm going to take the flip side. I think Hollywood Brown is like raring to go because of being sidelined last season. And even when he got back, ran some good routes, made a couple of decent-sized plays to move the chains more in particular than anything super explosive. But I feel like his whole career was set back an entire year, despite playing the best quarterback in the game. So I feel like he's got something a little bit to prove, maybe a little chip on his shoulder. I think he might come out. In the end, in terms of yardage and targets, I think he may end up surpassing Worthy. But again, I think Worthy and Kelce are the leaders in the touchdown market.
It's my big question when it comes to Brown is, can he stay healthy? And obviously health is a factor for every single player. I get that, but he has shown that he's struggled with staying healthy in his career. So to me, that's my big question when it comes to him. When you start looking at yardage and number of receptions and targets, if he can stay healthy the whole season, maybe he is going to be that number 3 guy. Maybe he could even give Travis Kelce a run for his money when it comes to number 2, because the reality is that if you have a guy like Rashee Rice taking things in the intermediate and the short to an extent, and then you have Hollywood Brown being able to do everything else at the wide receiver position, you should have things that are going to be a lot more open. And so he could have more space to work with, and it could end up being a huge season for him if he can stay healthy for 17 games.
Yeah, I think that he has the possibility to be enormous.
Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
How much we trust Kevin Stefanski to develop these quarterbacks.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast.
This quarterback competition in a perfect world, like one of these guys balls out and it becomes clear and obvious he has to be the starter. But it's not a perfect world. These types of competitions rarely sort themselves out that way when you got four guys all kind of competing for one job. And two of them being reasons that it seems like the Browns don't really want to play week one. But listen, if Shador is incredible in the preseason and training camp, or Dylan Gabriel like really turns heads and it becomes undeniable, like if it's close, should the Browns just roll out one of those rookies week one? Or are you still inclined, because I know how you feel on this in retrospect, are you still inclined to feel like, man, I would still slow play with those quarterbacks and not put anybody out there week one because you don't think it's an advantageous situation to that guy developing the right way?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. And
for sure.
To be totally honest with you, man, my mind hasn't changed. I really, if it was me going into the regular season, Joe Flacco is my starting quarterback. Shador Sanders is my quarterback 2, and Dylan Gabriel is my quarterback 3. Kenny Pickett is not on his team. Joe Flacco is a savvy veteran, and he understands the nuances of the NFL. And week one, when it's for real, like when live bullets is flying, that can be dangerous for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. And
you have to be careful before you just kind of throw a rookie quarterback out there to a fire, because they might not be able to come back from an unsuccessful first attempt. You know what I mean? And so to me, I think giving whatever rookie a few games to watch, learn, see how it is like for real, because you really won't understand that until you get to week one of the regular season. And I think this is where Joe Flacco, the veteran, is going to show up. And if the two rookies are paying attention, they can learn a lot. And then you have to think of the aspect of the other players on this team, right? There are veteran players on this team who expect to win. They want to win. Denzel Ward has came out and said that this is going to be a good year for him personally. And he feels like this is the Cleveland Browns year. You got guys in that locker room who is focused on winning, despite what we in the media might think or say, locally and nationally. And so Joe Flacco gives them the most immediate opportunity to have success and to win. But as we go further down the road, I'm going to be real and I'm going to be just raw and honest with you. I go back, man, and I jog my memory backwards throughout this entire process, right? And granted, you can't trust every piece of information that you see, and not everybody is perfect. Not everybody gets, these draft predictions and top players right. But every single draft expert, from the Todd McShays to the Mel Kipers, across the board, across every national platform, ranked their top 100, top 150 players. And not once did I see Dylan Gabriel's name. When you seen all the top quarterbacks, if they ranked them 1 through 5, even if they ranked them 1 through 8, not once did I see personally Dylan Gabriel's name. And if the Browns had some, offset meetings and they did their extensive homework and they fell in love with him, it just looked like a one-off to me. All I'm saying is Shador Sanders, we both know, should have been drafted much higher than what he was. I'm just thankful that he's here, and the Cleveland Browns might have gotten lucky and found themselves a franchise quarterback. When you have veteran players that's gravitating towards a rookie like that, it says a lot. Granted, Chad Ochocinco, for example, on his podcast, he's not close to the situation, but he clearly has some relationships with some players on his team. And we have spent several weeks talking about the stats and all these different camps. But when he talked about, to hell with the stats and to hell with all of that, we're talking about how he's spinning that football, how he's commanding the offense and things like that. Those are things that guys who put on those pads and helmets, those are things that they pay attention to and things that matter to them. And I think the Cleveland Browns honestly might have a future star at quarterback with Shedeur Sanders. All he has to do is just keep putting in the work and doing the things that he has to do. And I'm not trying to throw shade at Dylan Gabriel. I just honestly believe of the two players, I think Shedeur Sanders is better, and I don't think it's close. Now, that doesn't mean that Dylan Gabriel can't be developed or he can't be an asset to this football team. Because even if you are a second or third string quarterback, if you're in that quarterback room doing your homework and being inclusive into the overall goal, you never know when your opportunity may come. Injuries is real in this league, so I look at it like you got an opportunity, man, if I'm him, to just show what you can do and see what happens. But I really like what the Browns got in Shedeur. And even if they both kind of, did what they had to do during training camp to like heighten that opportunity for them, I still roll with Joe week 1.
Listen, I think, first of all, I agree on Shedeur. Like, I think he's the most talented of this group of quarterbacks. I just think the Browns want to I think the Browns want to do what you're outlining here. I think they want to slow play with both those guys, not put them out there in a a situation where they maybe struggle because it's a tough opening stretch of the schedule and all these things, and probably you won't see them until later in the season. That doesn't mean I don't think Shedeur could and this is why it's such an interesting conversation, Earl, because I think in today's day and age, the way quarterbacks are handled has changed. Like, if you're a first round pick, like Cam Ward, for example, it's not gone are the days where you have to absolutely positively sit behind somebody and develop for a year, take like a redshirt year in the NFL. That doesn't happen anymore. And part of that is because these coaches, their windows of their job security are like shorter than ever. So if you think you have a franchise guy and you use a first round pick on him, you want to get him out there sooner rather than later. Now, the situation for the Browns is different because they took these guys later. There's not as much pressure to play like a third round pick or a fifth round pick, even if that fifth round pick is Shedeur Sanders, who we both think is really good. Like if they had taken Shedeur in the first round, it's a different story. Now you almost feel like you got to play him week 1 because you're investing in the fact that like you use such a high pick on him. But so that's why I think it's an interesting conversation, because the conversation, it has shifted over the years from being like, take the redshirt year, sit for a year, to, hey, if you think you have your guy, you start him immediately and get them as many reps as possible. But in this situation, I think it's a little bit different.
And I agree with that because I do think it differs per situation. You go back to when Patrick Mahomes was drafted, right? A lot of people forget he only played the final regular season game of his rookie year. And so Andy Reid and the Chiefs had a plan for him that clearly worked out, right? Would Patrick Mahomes still be the same guy if he was thrust in there into action week 1 of his rookie season, where he was still green and he still had a lot to learn? And so we will never know that, right? But clearly he is one of the last quarterbacks that was drafted in the first round that got the opportunity to sit. You look at the situation in Atlanta last year with Michael Penix Jr., right? They give Kirk Cousins all that money. They still make the choice to draft that quarterback in the first round. End of the season, he gets an opportunity to play after sitting for the majority of the year. So we have very few examples of that being the course of action. It looks like how the Cleveland Browns wants to take that course of action here, and it's easier for them to do so because either one of their quarterbacks was not drafted in the first round. So it makes a lot of sense.
So along those lines, Earl, I think the next part of the quarterback conversation, especially as the two rookies are concerned, is whether or not you trust Kevin Stefanski to develop these guys. And what I think is, I was thinking about this and I talked about it a little bit yesterday. When you think about Kevin Stefanski's history with quarterbacks, you have the first year he's here with Baker Mayfield, which was great. Like at that time, that was the best year of Baker's career. But now Baker has gone on to play somewhere else, and he's better than he was that year with Kevin Stefanski. So then you fast forward, you get the second year with Baker, not a great year. Obviously, there was injuries that were part of that equation. You get the year with Deshaun and Jacoby Brissett sort of splitting the starts because he was suspended to start the year. And Brissett looked like maybe he was having the best year of his career, one of the best years of his career with Stefanski. He was good. He was fine. I wouldn't say he was amazing, but he was fine. And then you get the Deshaun experience the last couple of years, which has been very much a roller coaster ride. Kevin Stefanski trying to fit a quarterback that probably didn't fit his scheme into his scheme, or vice versa, and it just didn't work. But you have Joe Flacco thrown in there, where Joe Flacco basically saved his career and gets a couple extra years out of this thing because of what he did with the Browns in 2023. You see a couple other small moments with like a PJ Walker and even DTR getting a win against the Steelers a couple years ago. And then that brings us to last year where it was like just a complete disaster at the quarterback position, but they weren't running an offense that really even resembled what Kevin Stefanski's offense is supposed to look like. So as I think about these things, the one quarterback card Kevin Stefanski hasn't been handed yet is draft and develop a quarterback into your starter. I know they drafted DTR, but we all knew DTR probably wasn't in line to become a starter on this team at some point. This year, they actually have two guys, one in Gabriel, who they really loved, that they maybe think could have a future as a starter in this league, and another in Shedeur Sanders that was misdrafted, if you will, because he should have gone earlier and could potentially be a starter in this league. Like, he has two guys that he could potentially develop here. Or if you don't end up thinking either of these guys are going to be it, you draft one next year, and that's your guy, like in the first round, potentially with these 2 first-round picks that they have. And so my question in all this, Earl, is as you think about Kevin Stefanski in the quarterback position, he's had some good moments. I don't know if there's been any great moments where you're like, this guy's like some quarterback guru. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering if, because this is the first time he's getting a chance to actually draft and develop guys, either this year or next year, are you giving him a clean slate when it comes to the quarterback position and his ability to find one? Or are you sort of entering the season hesitant and concerned about his ability to do that at this point?
I'm entering this season TBD, and I am a Kevin Stefanski guy.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the development of quarterbacks, I can't say that I've seen Kevin Stefanski develop any quarterback. But what I can say is I have seen Kevin Stefanski time in and time out put quarterbacks in the best situation possible to win and have success. Yeah. And I think those are definitely two different teams, right? Two different things. You know, we, as you alluded to, Jacoby Brissett was having one of the best seasons of his career. We know Baker Mayfield had his weaknesses and his deficiencies, and Kevin Stefanski did, I think, a great job of hiding those when Baker, was bought in and wanting to pay attention. I think the Deshaun Watson thing, that's a whole nother story within itself. But you look at what happened this year. For some odd reason, I do feel like this is the first season that Kevin Stefanski had the majority of the say of the quarterbacks that was coming out of the draft that he wanted. He fell in love with Dylan Gabriel, and clearly Shedeur Sanders is another guy who fits his system that me and you believe more than a lot of the quarterbacks that was coming out in this draft. And so he and his staff will have the opportunity for the first time to develop a quarterback, and I think we will be paying very close attention if he can get that done. I do think, though, as a head coach, you're only as strong as your staff. I think he's been, Don, this QB whisperer or this guy that can develop quarterbacks, and that might be a little bit of a false narrative. I know that Kevin Stefanski landed this job because he was a great play caller. And so how we got to the point of, him being this quarterback developer is beyond me, because coming into the process, it was more so about the offensive scheme and him being able to call plays. Now, we look at where we are now, and I just feel like over his tenure, he's been able to put quarterbacks in the best position to have success. We're going to see if he can develop a quarterback of his own and get the most out of him. But, he has a strong staff. Like, you got a strong QB coach, and you have a young, hot offensive coordinator that was highly touted. And so it'd be interesting to see, the development of these two young men, not just by Kevin, but by Kevin and his staff.
It's well said. And yeah, I think like Stefanski kind of falls in the bucket with like a Kyle Shanahan, where it's like, it's less about him being a quarterback developer and more about, does he have the right guy for the system he likes to run? So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, like, even if the Browns don't think they have their franchise guy right now with these two rookies, to see them develop this year will go a long way, I think, in helping people feel like, okay, Stefanski can do that at some point when they potentially draft a different quarterback. So it will be something to keep an eye on, no doubt, this season.